It's all right.
Yeah.
Today, the 3rd of July, may go down as what we call summer, so enjoy it. Now, Andrea Leadsom was one of Vote Leave's star players during the referendum, and she's generally reckoned to have had a very good campaign. Buoyed by that success, the Energy Minister is now pitching for the very top job. She has decided to run for the Tory leadership in her own right, rather than back another candidate, and she's with me now. Good morning to you. Can I just read to you something that you said to the Hansard Society not that long ago, 2013? You said, "I'm going to nail my colours to the mast here. I don't think the UK should leave the EU. I think it would be a disaster for our economy, and it would lead to a decade of economic and political uncertainty at a time when the tectonic plates of global success are moving." Why was that, Andrea Leadsom, so wrong?
Well, you know, it has been a journey. Now, when I came into Parliament, like most people in the country, I'd grown up as part of the EU, and it's absolutely part of our sort of DNA. And I came into Parliament, set up something called the Fresh Start Project, which took hundreds and hundreds of hours of evidence about how the EU impacts on the UK, on everything from immigration to fisheries to budgets and so on. And during that process, I travelled all across Europe with lots of parliamentary colleagues, up to 100 of Conservative colleagues supporting this work, to try and get a really decent fundamental reform of the EU. Now, in that very same lecture, which you're obviously not quoting today, I was very clear that the UK's current situation was totally untenable, and that the only way we could remain a part of the EU was if we had fundamental reform. The status quo was not an option. And I made very clear in the rest of that speech that what the sort of reforms that we needed should be.
Absolutely, you did.
And of course, when the Prime Minister came back with his reform, with his renegotiation, with the certainty of a referendum behind it to sort of lend power to his elbow, it was very clear that the EU is just not reformable. So that speech was April 2013, and things have moved on.
The reason that we have listened very carefully to the whole speech, and we do understand all the reform side, is that nonetheless your fundamental point was, despite all of that stuff, as it were, coming out of the EU will be such a big shock, we shouldn't do it. That has not changed, has it?
Well, no, I think it absolutely has. I think that the risks of remaining in the EU massively magnified since around that time, actually, as did the determination of the EU institutions to go further, faster. You know, they have sacrificed a generation of Southern European young people to up to 50% youth unemployment, to poverty. You know, Greece has lost 25% of her economy. We've got this massive migration crisis. So things fundamentally changed. But also, at the same time, the UK's economy has been recovering. You know, I think the Chancellor did a fantastic job.
So it has changed entirely.
Yes, it has
and you
changed.
completely disagree with George Osborne, who says we're going to be a poorer country as a result.
Well, I do. Yes, I disagree. Yes.
He said it this week, and you wouldn't have him. If you became leader, you wouldn't have him in your government, is that?
You know, I'm kind of not even slightly at that stage, but what I genuinely believe is that the next person to lead this country has to be somebody who believes in the opportunity of leaving the EU, who genuinely believes our place in the world could be so much better if we leave the EU.
So why should it be Andrea Leadsom? You've had a lot of experience in banking and so forth before you came to politics, but you're relatively inexperienced at top-flight politics. You haven't been in the cabinet, rather than somebody like Michael Gove, who's been a senior cabinet minister, who's been there for a long time, or indeed Liam Fox, who was in the cabinet for a long time. Why you and not them?
Well, you know, I absolutely believe that people who have real-world experience, I mean, I've been in financial services for 25 years before coming into Parliament, running enormous teams, small teams, running start-up businesses, being part of a huge bank. I've also set up and run charities. I have a huge passion for the early years, for the real social justice agenda, and I genuinely believe leadership qualities need people who profoundly believe in things,
so
and that's
in a sense, what you're saying is it's time for some outsiders. The politicians have screwed things up so badly, it's time to bring in people from the outside.
No, I'm not saying that at all, Andrew.
Time for a rookie.
No, I'm absolutely not saying that. I think I genuinely want to do some things for our country to make it the greatest country on earth. And I believe I have the experience of the real world, as well as a good amount of experience in government. I was City Minister for a year. I've been Energy Minister for a year. I have actually a good deal of understanding about politics, and I don't think that should hold me back.
We don't know much about your programme. I think you're launching that tomorrow, but you have said that you would trigger Article 50 to begin the negotiation to leave as soon as is humanly possible. Is that because you fear, like many people watching, that Brexit somehow won't happen? There will be an establishment stitch-up to stop it?
No, I don't think there would be an establishment stitch-up, but what I do believe is that we need to get on with it. We need to seize the opportunity. It's not just about leaving the EU, but it's about giving certainty to businesses. It's about saying to the world, we're open for business. Let's get some free trade agreements started as soon as we can. It's about saying to young people, we're sorting out the issues around competition from EU migrants for your jobs. You know, businesses need to upskill British workers. So we just need to get on with it. We need to get a grip and make progress.
Because the other side of the argument is that once the clock starts ticking, you have limited time to get the deal, and therefore you're in a weaker position. And that is why Michael Gove, for instance, has said, you know, there's no hurry behind this. Let's give it some time. But you want the clock to start ticking in September this year. Doesn't that weaken your negotiating position?
No, I genuinely don't think it. I mean, I probably know more about the EU than most people in government right now, but apart from some people who've spent their whole careers looking at it, for whom I have immense regard. But very seriously, I genuinely believe on trade with the EU. We currently trade tariff-free. We've had 43 years aligning our goods and services to theirs. There are very strong reasons, both financial and for reasons of links, that we will continue to trade tariff-free.
All right. Now, you have had a huge amount of support for your campaign already. Piling in, my Twitter feed is crammed with it, but they're almost all UKIP people. Aaron Banks wants to fund your campaign. Are you content, are you satisfied to be, as it were, the candidate where the Conservative Party and UKIP touch fingers?
I mean, I don't recognise what you're saying. I mean,
well,
I've had
the support is pouring in from
UKIP
people
I've
too.
had a, well, I don't know if they're I don't know how you can say that they're UKIP people. I think I've been
Aaron
overwhelmed
Banks,
by.
he wants to back you.
Aaron Banks is one person, that's true, and I've been absolutely overwhelmed by support from people who are saying, you know, I've traditionally a Labour voter, but if you got elected, I'd vote for you. So how do you know? Is that's a Labour supporter? So I don't think it's fair to say that I'm just being supported by UKIP. I think the undertone of your accusation is that somehow those aren't nice
friendly
people or
question.
something. Okay.
No, it's a friendly
so in
question.
answer to your
I just want to know where you are politically.
In answer to your friendly question then, Andrew, I'm delighted by the wide range of support, and actually very particularly from young people who say it's not true to say only older people wanted to leave. We want to leave. We see our future in the world.
One question very clearly. Would you have Nigel Farage on your negotiating team, as a lot of people would like to see? You know, he is the great victor of this in many respects. He should be there. He shouldn't be pushed out by the Westminster establishment.
I don't want to get into who would do what. What we need is somebody to lead the campaign who really believes in the opportunities.
Now, a lot of people would say, actually, in this period of uncertainty, it's a very, very difficult world. You could end this now. You could all stand aside and let Theresa May be the next Prime Minister. We would have a new government in very short order. We could get on with everything. Business would be much reassured by that. Why not? What's so important about getting Andrea Leadsom onto the ticket that it's worth putting the country through weeks and weeks and weeks of uncertainty and turmoil?
So I wouldn't frame it in the way that you have. I think Theresa is a superb candidate, no question about that. But genuinely, I believe the country needs to be led by someone who believes fervently and understands the opportunities of leaving the EU. We just had a referendum. People voted to leave. We need to understand that and deal with it.
She said Brexit is Brexit. I get it.
But yes. But somebody who says, OK, I've been told to leave, so I'll leave, with no enthusiasm, is very different to somebody who absolutely sees the sunlit uplands of leaving the EU, the prospects for our children, our grandchildren, our business, of being open to the world. And secondly, really importantly in this debate, I just don't think it would be right to have a coronation. I think people need to have a choice of candidates.
Final question. David Cameron changed the political landscape when he published his own tax returns. Will you do the same?
Would I do? Yes, I mean, I'm perfectly happy to publish my tax. I would not want to make MPs have to do that. I don't believe that people should have to disclose everything in life.
But now you're a candidate for the top office. Would you publish it before the vote?
I'll have to think about that, but in principle, I have no problem with it. But as I say, I don't want to set a precedent. I think MPs are under
Couldn't you just say yes? I mean, after all.
Yes.
All right, yes. We have a yes.
All right.
Andrea Leadsom, thank you very much indeed for joining us. Now,